Give them a shot to do what?
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Shy Kid Podcast. I am your host, Mike Hughes, sitting here with the most handsome man in Indianapolis, Tony Hollandsworth, a now, for sure, die-hard Bears fan. Happy to have him here. He was kind of half Bears fan, half Cowboys fan. It was unfortunate, but he's my guy. I promise I vouched for him. Tony, you're going into the 2024 season, a die-hard Bears fan. How's it feel with the draft 2 weeks away?
You know what, man? I'm so excited. I don't think I've ever been this excited for Bears football since like 2013 when there was Cutler, when there was Jeffrey, when there was Brandon Marshall,
Bennett.
You had Martellus Bennett, you had all of it, man. Like I was so excited. And now it's like I don't have to worry about the whole like, oh man, this is our year. I'm going all in from Jerry Jones. Now it's like, no, I kind of realize like the future is bright. The organization's being ran well, getting good veterans, good players. Like I'm excited. Go Da Bears. Da Bears.
Love to see it. But, we got a couple people in the comments right now, whether you're watching this on TikTok or whether you're watching this on Give Us a Shot Network. Definitely check out Give Us a Shot Network. Always doing amazing things. So many other panelists, so many other great shows to protect our queens, WNBA and college basketball for women's sports. They do amazing things. We got the draft on Monday. I'll be there covering Caitlin Clark and the rest of the WNBA 2024 class. We're going to be covering that all year long. Mike Powers and I are doing some great things next week. Germ, Bert, Corey, everybody else does amazing shit 24/7. Part of my language, but it's just what it is. It's amazing stuff going on over here. But Tone, somebody wanted to know, somebody in the comments, why not a Colts fan from Indianapolis? How'd you find your way to Dallas?
So I found my way to Dallas because I grew up. My mom was actually a Cowboys fan back during when Roger Staubach was around, back when Tom Landry was the coach. And then my brother grew up in the 90s watching Troy Aikman, Jimmy Johnson, all of them. So for me, it was honestly just a family thing. I was like, man, this is a family deal, whatnot. So we decided to become Dallas fans. Well, like I told y'all, and for people who don't know, when I came into the playoffs with the Packers, I was like, okay, if Dallas loses, like I don't know if I can be a fan because I am not a Jordan Love fan. I don't believe in Jordan Love. That was even before converting fully to a Bears fan. And then honestly, it was kind of weird because growing up, like Colts fans were so spoiled having Peyton Manning in high school. So when Peyton Manning got hurt in 2011, everybody was, oh man, the team's going to do fine 14. Like, that's going to happen, right? And they absolutely did. Was old. They got carried by a really good Peyton Manning because what a lot of people seem to forget, a really good quarterback can make up for a lot of bad mistakes on your team.
Right.
Their defense was old. They had to be on the field all the time. Dallas Clark was coming to the end of his prime. Reggie Wayne was still kind of that guy. He was still the number one guy at the time, but Joseph Adai wasn't that guy. Bob Sanders was constantly injured. He wasn't that guy anymore. Gary Brackett, Greeny, Robert Mathis, they were both still pretty good. But overall, though, man, that whole team, they got carried by Peyton quite a bit. And that was evident even from the season before when they ended up finishing 10-6. So mainly it was kind of a little bit of a stick to my city when everybody was like, well, why aren't you a Colts fan? You're from Indianapolis. It's like, yeah, y'all were spoiled with Peyton Manning. Y'all were jobs. But now since, traveling the world, being in the military for 8 years and coming home, I've come to love Indianapolis. Now I don't hate the Colts. I've come to like them. It's just unfortunately the last, 7-8 years, they haven't really figured out the quarterback situation since Andrew Luck unfortunately retired. So it's like, man, it's hard to get behind them when it's a rotating carousel at quarterback.
And I think you finally have found that answer. At least I would say so. I think there's definitely questions about the availability of a guy
Mhm.
like Anthony Richardson, but talent based wise and who he is as a person, from what we've seen thus far, I think he's second to none. And I think he's a great guy to have in the building, especially with Jonathan Taylor and company. But with that being said, man, there is a quarterback controversy going on in Chicago right now. The quarterback carousel, right now as it stands, Tyson Bagent, shout out to him. He outlived Justin Fields in his Bears collegiate career, in his Bears NFL career.
Mhm.
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. As of today, April 12th, 2024, Tyson Bagent is QB1 of the Chicago Bears. So shout out to
Whew,
him. Shout
good
out
for
to
him,
him.
man.
Get those jerseys in right now because I don't think it's going to last too much longer because Caleb Williams is less than 2 weeks away. You and I might be in Detroit. We have some things we have to figure out.
Mhm.
It's going to be interesting. It might be a game time decision. We'll see how that goes.
Right.
I just
I
had to
do.
make sure we weren't getting Drake May. I saw it on Bleacher Report. I just had to make
Ooh.
sure there was no validity to it. But I want to ask you, man. I want to get into our first topic. Jaylon Johnson,
Mhm.
captain of the defense. I know a lot of people think it's Montez Sweat, but Jalen's been here from the ground up. He's been here this entire time. He's been here with the last core, this now current core. I would give it to JJ. So he gets a contract extension. He has been with the team for 4 years. He's pulling a Bojack. He's pulling a Eddie Jackson, switching from 39 to 4. Jaylon Johnson is switching from 33 to number uno. He's
Yep.
taken Justin Fields' jersey number. Now, he wore it in his collegiate career. He wore
Mhm.
number 1 in college. Now, obviously, when he came into the league, if I'm not mistaken, at that current time, that was one of the last years DBs weren't and linemen just weren't allowed to wear whatever number they wanted. So, of
Correct.
course, he takes number 33. If I'm not mistaken, he was drafted before Justin Fields, a
Yep.
year before. So, obviously, that number was available. He just didn't get to wear it. Justin Fields and him had a very close relationship.
Mhm.
So the question for you is, was this more about I want to wear the jersey number I wore in college, or I want to make sure a guy like Caleb Williams isn't rocking out number 1?
I think it's a little bit of both, and there is something else that I wanna kinda throw out there too. I don't know if you remember it or not. Do you remember, I think it was his rookie year, maybe it was even his sophomore year when
Talking
Justin I
Jalen?
think Jalen, yeah,
Okay.
when I think it was about the time when Justin got drafted, and Jalen was still kinda feeling himself out his rookie year, and he's wearing number 33. You know who kinda came out and roasted him for wearing that? Charles Peanut Tillman, the
Mm-hmm.
GOAT of 33 was like,
Peanut
"Get that."
punch.
He's like, "Get that off there." Like, "No, you are not rocking 33 the way you're supposed to be." And I think that kinda carried a chip on his shoulder because you notice his game has gotten better and better throughout the years as it's gone on. So I think it's a little bit of both of he's doing it, not only because he wore it in college, but if they were really close and whatnot, he's gonna wanna wear it to, honor your brother and whatnot. And plus it is kinda helpful for Bears fans because now Bears fans don't have to get rid of the one jerseys. They can keep it because it's still a current player on there. It's now Fields no more. You just
Tape
put a
on
little tape
Johnson,
on, put tape on Johnson. Um,
without a doubt. But I want to get to that point though. I felt like, and I was always huge on Jaylon Johnson. I've always been very vocal. Interceptions are one thing. Trayvon Diggs has a lot of interceptions, but how many times does he get burnt? It doesn't always speak volumes. Ryan Poles said, listen, if I'm going to make you one of the highest paid corners in the league, you
mhm,
need to show me that you can create turnovers, that you can actually be a huge asset to this defense other than just, glue to hip type of corner that's going to, bat down swats, et cetera, et cetera. Um, this year, man, I mean, we're looking at pick sixes. We're looking at several
mhm,
interceptions, big time interceptions and big time moments. And Jaylon Johnson showed that he can do everything you need him to do from a secondary perspective. So I felt like he had finally earned that number 33. I think even Peanut Tillman would say today, yeah, Jaylon Johnson's valid enough to wear 33. I think he's a leader. I think
yeah,
he's a great athlete, a great player. He makes people better. He's a multiplier. And Ryan Poles has
mhm,
talked about how important having a multiplier is. You can add and subtract. That's fine. The one thing you can't do is divide. But the big thing is multiply. Make guys like Kyler Gordon, make guys like Tyreek Stevenson and so many others better. And Jalen's been that. So it's unfortunate, man. And I want to throw this one to you. Where do you stand as it pertains to changing a jersey number
mhm,
years after you've already been a part of the organization? Now, obviously, it's different when you change teams. I think there's different conversations. Like the first time LeBron left Cleveland, 23-6. That's
yeah,
perfectly okay. But then you're looking at him as a Laker. He's worn 23 and 6 as a Laker throughout the last 3 years. So it's like, from a fan perspective, do you hate the idea of a player being able to change their jersey number just like that?
I do, because I mean, you got to think about it. Kind of like I said with Fields. I mean, Bears fans don't necessarily have to get rid of the one jersey because I mean they can wear it for Johnson. But as a fan, like it kind of sucks because you want you if you go out and you buy a new jersey, because there's some people they don't buy jerseys very often. I don't blame them. They can be expensive, especially
Right.
depending on how good a quality you want. But if I go out and I get the $150, $200 option where like the numbers are sewn and whatnot, it's like okay, this is a nice jersey. This is going to last me a good long while, and either A, they cut that guy, or B, another guy switches to that number. It's like, man, now I either got to go get a new one, or this one just looks ridiculous because this guy isn't actually on the team or he doesn't wear this number anymore. So I mean, I get it from like you kind of want to go back to your collegiate roots, but I also feel like there comes a point where, and I feel like this is more of an old school NFL like idea. Guys made the number that they wore.
Right.
Like, yes, you had it in college. Like, you look at Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs even talked about that when he was in Buffalo. He's like, I could switch to number 1, but why am I going to do that to the fans that already bought my jersey that are wearing 14? Like, I'm not going to do that to them. And I feel like that would be kind of the same for Jaylon. Like, why do it now?
Right.
Like you had Justin there, so you couldn't really have that option before. It's like, why do it now? You started to earn that 33. Now, maybe it's also kind of an homage and respect to Charles Peanut. Like, hey, I don't really feel like I deserve to wear 33. Like Charles Tillman made this number what it is. I kind of want to leave that alone type deal. Cause I think that happens sometimes too. I think because,
like you don't see anybody wearing 54. That's just what it is.
Right.
Like
you don't
no
see
one's
anybody
rocking her locker's number.
No, and it's kind of the same with I think the Legion of Boom did that with like number 24 for Marshawn Lynch. At least a lot of the older guys over there, they're like, hey, as long as we're here, ain't nobody wearing number 24.
Right.
Like that's his number.
Even remember who was it? It was it Freeman? Freeman was wearing 50 for the Chicago Bears back in like 20, or I think it was the early 2020s, or maybe before that, like 2017, 2018. And he was wearing 50 and everyone was like, not wearing Singletary's number, bro. Like that's just not flying. And who was wearing 50 for the Chicago Bears? Let me make sure. Because it used to piss me off, man. I used to be like, man, like I can't believe this number hasn't been retired. And it's just one of those things where Jarrell Freeman was wearing number 50 for the Chicago Bears, and I couldn't stand it. And it's one of those things where it's like, the Bears have retired how many jerseys at this point? So you can't retire.
It's like 13 of them, I think.
Yeah. I actually don't think they're allowed to retire any more jerseys. I think they've stopped it. I think the only exception they would make is if Caleb Williams turns into the next, the greatest thing that the Bears have ever seen. But, with that being said, we're at this point where it's like, I just don't know how I feel about the vibe right now. I don't know where the team stands. I don't know where the defense stands as it pertains to Justin Fields and Caleb Williams. And that's not just because I'm a Justin Fields fan. I want to sit there here and say that first and foremost, I do not care who you are or what you do, as long as you're not OJ Simpson or Jackson Mahomes level of bad and foul. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're out there slinging it, man, pink nails, blue nails, pink, whatever, black, white, I don't care, bro. Like, as long as he's out there doing his God's work and winning football games for it, that Bears. But, I don't know.
I feel like people do this all the time because I know I even was kind of like flustered and confused at times, because you remember how Cam Newton would come out with outfits like that. You're like, Cam, what are you doing?
Man, Cam, to this day, I remember that video of Cam beating somebody's ass at the event like a month ago. That hat did not move. Germ, if you're Germ's our guy, he does amazing edits. Germ, if you're playing this right now and you're listening to this, please clip this to the video of Cam Newton getting into a scuffle about a month ago. That hat, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this right now, that hat does not move. It is witchcraft. You cannot tell me otherwise. Like, I don't know how he did it.
I think I said it was a pilgrim hat too. Like you got your ass kicked by a pilgrim, man. Like, come on.
It's absolutely insane, bro. Hocus Pocus 3 starring Cam Newton.
But I mean, yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. Like, I get why people are maybe hesitant, or they're like, oh man, you painting nails. At the end of the day, if you ball out on the field, and I think that's what a lot of people, not only in the city of Chicago, is probably going to accept, but mostly in the NFL too. Like, if you start balling out, nobody's going to care. Yeah, like you can do pretty much almost as long. Let me correct this. You can do almost anything that isn't illegal, and you're going to be okay.
Facts. And even if it realistically, even if it is illegal, as long as it doesn't hit a certain level, you're still okay. Like, I expect Rashid Rice to still be starting week 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean,
now see, I heard today. So he is under arrest. There's like a few felony charges he's got to face, and then like a couple misdemeanors too.
Yeah.
Somebody had
Community
mentioned
service.
somebody had mentioned maybe do like 4 games, like suspending for 4 games, and then
Sure.
do community service, because he doesn't deserve to be suspended for like the whole season. Like it
Right. This
sucks.
isn't
Like
a
it's
Henry
unfortunate.
Ruggs situation. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is just
like people got hurt, but it
Yeah.
was like minor injuries. Not to dismiss what they got, because it sucks that happened.
If you would have hit me,
oh
I
yeah,
cannot see, I cannot breathe, I cannot walk, I cannot talk. I am there. I am getting paid.
It'd be my neck and my back, and I ain't gonna finish the
Oh,
rest of it, but it's gonna be all of it.
all of it.
All of it.
But no, man, I completely agree. And I think, we've had these conversations before about Caleb Williams and really breaking down, who he can be for the city of Chicago. And I always take it back to Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman's wearing dresses. Dennis Rodman's at WrestleMania. Dennis Rodman's hooking up with Madonna, getting offered $5 million to even give her his seed, and so many other crazy things about Dennis. I mean, there was a time where Dennis was walking around the arena with an automatic weapon, if I'm not mistaken. And they kind of like, there's been a lot of times where Dennis Rodman was kind of going off the rails. So not to say Caleb's in that same breath, but to say that, how much we loved and appreciated Dennis Rodman in the city of Chicago, and you won't love Caleb Williams because he paints his fingernails and has a pink phone. I'll tell you this right now. I've said this time and time again on I don't know how many different pods, on how many different shows, on how many different lives. I will say it till my dying breath. If that man walks into Lombardi with his fingernails painted and they say F Green Bay, like he had F Utah on there, and he flips the script and he beats the Green Bay Packers for the first time since December 16, 2018, I will show up to the next game at Soldier Field with painted fingernails on Give Us a Shot Network, and we will do that live. I promise you, Tony. It will become a trend. Fans will start doing it. The women, especially, people don't understand. Wisconsin Packer fans, Green Bay Packer fans, they're just a bunch of, big fellas is the only, so we don't get banned for bullying. I want to say they're just a bunch of dudes. They're just a bunch of dudes. But Bears fans, men, women, children, teenagers, babies, all around the sun, black, white, everything. Bears fans roll deep. I could see plenty of people pulling up to Bears games with painted fingernails and pink cell phones and just rocking out. If Caleb Williams becomes the hottest thing since pants with pockets, then so be it. Accept it. We're trendsetters here. Just like you said about Cam Newton. I mean, sure, people weren't dressing the way Cam did, but Panthers fans loved it. Yep. And they were down with it. So, like, for you, man, I'm going to talk to a military man himself, a man who understands how to dress, a man who cleans his beard and nails polished. How do you feel about Caleb Williams and the swag that he brings? Because that's the word I choose. I think it's swaggy. I think, he shows up to March Madness for Juju Watkins with a pink cell phone. I'm rocking with it. You know what I mean? He's in the moment at a women's event, rocking with the pink cell. He's got the lip gloss on. He's got the painted fingernails. Where are you at with it?
So I heard something the other day that kind of really made me think and kind of rethink my stance on it, my approach on it. The biggest one, if you got to find the smallest thing to nitpick, like, oh, he's got a pink cell phone case. Oh, he has pink fingernails. He's got this, he's got that. Really can't critique his actual game and how he plays and how he performs. You searching. You are absolutely just searching for stuff to basically complain about and nitpick. And all honesty, you're going to have that with every single quarterback, every single guy, every single player, even not even just quarterback. You're going to have that with everybody. If you can't make a legitimate argument to me about, oh, I don't think he's got the resiliency. Now, I know we've talked about it kind of attitude wise. It's like we get the passion, but, like being up in the stands with your mom crying. It's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I get why you're doing it. I'm not saying you can't be passionate, but there's that time and that place for it. Like just don't do it. Just don't do it in front of all your fans, because they're going to look at you like crazy. But other than that, I don't really see why people hate it. I think they're just nitpicking. And I do want to add to your Packers comment. There's a reason why my ex-wife was a Packers fan. Is my ex-wife is because I couldn't do it no more. Like, no, exactly. I can't hear this whole, oh, go Pack, go. No, da Bears.
Da Bears. Come on, da Bears. The house that Jacob built. I mean, it's one of those things, though, man. You have to understand where you're at right now. And I think in Chicago, in the mecca of a city that's just been dying and starving for real quarterback play, really haven't had it since Jay Cutler. And don't even forget, remember that one episode of Shameless when, if Fiona walks in, hey, Carl, do you have a Bears jersey? No, but I have a FJ Cutler t-shirt. And that was so real. That was so real. And Killer Carl was right on their head with that because that's how people felt. But what we would do right now for even Jay Cutler to be back in the Bears organization at that level that he was playing in, I think we'd all kill for it. So, I definitely think we're waiting for that moment. We're waiting for the idea of what Caleb Williams can be. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, a revamped O-line that I'm still skeptical about. We're going to have that be one of our conversations to end the show. I kind of want to get your opinion on that because I don't think it's made leaps and bounds the way a lot of other people do. We'll have to see what happens with the draft, but only 4 picks in the draft and 2 are in the top 10. So, it's, if you're not going O-line in the first 2 picks, it's not going to be crazy. But with that being said, man, I want to talk about the draft. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Let's get the rumors out of the way first. You want to talk about it?
Let's do it. Let's talk about
there's
it.
conversations. There's multiple conversations. There's some that say the Arizona Cardinals are looking for 2 to 3 firsts for the number 4 overall pick, which is completely understandable, especially in the market of JJ McCarthy still might be there. Or if you want to go Marvin Harrison Jr., top O-line, Dallas Turner, et cetera, it's perfectly okay. But the other is that the Chicago Bears might trade up, just like we saw the Houston Texans do a year ago to be able to get Will Anderson and CJ Stroud together. The Bears might trade up. The rumor mill going around is they want to pair up Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. for the next 4 to 5 plus years. They will run together throughout their rookie careers and hopefully throughout the foreseeable future, the same way we've seen Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa, and so many others. It's great to have this conversation, Tony, because I remember a couple people said I didn't know anything about sports when I said that just because they got Keenan Allen means they still have to go wide receiver, in my opinion. I still feel that way. Keenan's 32. He's on a 1-year deal. Of course, the reason he's here is because he wanted to get paid. And that's the biggest thing right now. And does he want to be here? Question mark. I don't know if he wants to be here. He's a West Coast guy his entire life. Does he want to be in the Windy City? And are the Chicago Bears willing to pay him? I've seen Ryan Poles turn down prime Roquan Smith just because he didn't want to pay him. So if you think Keenan Allen's getting paid, you're crazy. DJ Moore, super cheap deal. Going to be a free agent at the end of the 2025 season. We'll see where he's at in 2 years if the Bears can't make any noise. So to have Marvin as a security blanket for the Chicago Bears, 1, how realistic do you think this is? And 2, what would that do for the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams in year 1?
I think it's pretty realistic because like you said, Keenan comes there. He's 32. You don't know how long he's going to be there. You don't know how long he wants to be there. And let's talk about another thing too. He may even call it quits. He may be like, I had my 1 year with Chicago, and maybe I just don't want to do it anymore. Maybe he wants to test free agency because maybe somebody will pay him a lot of money.
Maybe he goes, and not to cut you off, but like we've seen time and time again, guys say, well, I want to go play with Tom Brady. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. I want to go play with Patrick Mahomes, and he could just go do that.
Yeah, and not only that too, but I mean, as bad as it sounds, he can not only chase the money, he could chase the ring too. Like, hey, I want to finish my career with a ring. I want to go play with Patrick Mahomes. I want to at least compete for that chance to be able to get there and go do that. The other thing, though, he brings a lot of veteran leadership and experience to the team, which is what I was a big fan of, because it's like, okay, yes, DJ has been in the league for a while. He's proven himself, but you can always learn more. You can always establish yourself and learn more. So if Chicago was to go get Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think just like Keenan does, that's a fantastic teacher for him to be able to learn from and study under. Now, the only thing that does kind of make me worry, though, like you said, you've only got 4 picks. 2 of them are in the top 10. So if you try to trade up with Arizona to get that pick, you're definitely going to be giving up the number 9 overall, which that's pretty fair because, I mean, you're moving up 5 spots. But then are you giving up another pick for this year? Are you trying to get another pick for this draft if you're gonna basically trade and swap? And obviously you're going to be giving up future picks for it too. But what does that look like? How badly are you going to hurt yourself? Because like you said, there's still a lot of holes that you got to fill. There's a lot of question marks as far as the offensive line goes. I think you do need to work on the secondary a little bit because they cut Eddie Jackson, they cut Cody Whitehair. So I mean, there's still a lot of work that kind of needs to be done, mainly on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. But I wouldn't be completely opposed to it, and I wouldn't hate it because I
Right.
mean
Now,
you.
my bad. Right now, to your point, I want to point out for 2025, the Chicago Bears have their own first round pick, their own second, a Carolina second round pick, which would complete the DJ Moore and number 1 overall pick trade of 2022. Then you look at it for what it is, and you're like, all right, we got a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth from the Trace Claypool trade, and we don't have a seventh. But with that being said, Tony, it's not about what we're willing to give up, because I
Mhm.
think if you really want to go out and get Marvin Harrison Jr., if I'm Ryan Poles, I give that 2025 first round pick. The
Yeah.
problem is I see the competitors,
Yes.
the Minnesota Vikings, who have 2 first round picks right now in
Mhm.
2024, who can definitely provide a second or in 2024 or even another first in 2025. I could see them giving 3 first round picks. And that's obviously been the consensus. ESPN's been shoving that down our throats for the last month, that Minnesota is going to be the team that trades up to number 4. And if they want to take JJ McCarthy, please, by all means, take him. I'm not tripping about it. The man threw 0 completions against Penn State in the second half, thanks to Tony, who provided me for that information. And bro had 10 completions in the national championship. So if you want to go after him and go get him, because Jim Harbaugh said he was great, just so Jim could go draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and laugh at everybody, go for it. But
Mhm.
Tony, I think that's my biggest fear right now, in all seriousness, is I don't know if the Chicago Bears would be able to outbid the Minnesota Vikings right now for that number 4 overall pick. As much as Ryan Poles might want to do it, do you think in a realistic world, if there's other teams competitive or trying to compete for that number 4 overall pick, the Bears could still come out on top?
I I kind of agree. I think it's a super slight chance because, like you said, I've seen a lot of mock drafts where Minnesota potentially moves up to 4. I've seen some where Minnesota maybe even switches with the Giants and moves up to number 5.
Mm,
Because I feel like honestly, the first 3 we know are taking a quarterback.
right.
4 through 6 though is where there's a ton of questions because is Arizona going to potentially trade back, you know, accumulate and stockpile a ton of
Right.
draft picks
Do
and
the
really
Giants get a wide receiver for the first time in 7 years? Like,
do they get a wide receiver? Do they go after Joe All out of Notre Dame because they still need an offensive line to be able to go after? Do the Giants go after a quarterback? Because there's been a lot of talk. Maybe they go after JJ if he's still on the board as a potential successor to Daniel Jones. But to me, that doesn't make sense. A, because I'm not a JJ McCarthy fan,
I'm not
but
either
B,
fan.
because
I hate both of them.
because you would be given JJ or whoever you draft at quarterback the same exact situation you gave Eli at the end of his career, the same thing you've given Daniel Jones the entire time of his NFL career, and you would be setting up your new quarterback for the same exact failure.
To your point, though, I think it's worse than both of them because Saquon's not there anymore. So it's like you have no receivers, you have no
Yep.
running back, you have no O
Yep.
line. You just have Brian Thable, who looks like Mike Ditka's biggest fan. I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, that would
Yep.
honestly be to the point of this is the best situation any quarterback's ever gone to for Caleb Williams. That would
Mhm.
be one of the worst, I think,
Yes.
for
100%.
whoever goes to the New York Giants.
Yeah. The only thing they have is a really good defense because you have Kayvon Thibodeau and you have Brian Birds as your pass rusher.
Would you say it would remind you of Justin Fields getting drafted to the Chicago Bears when they still had Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack,
Mac.
Robert Quinn, Roquan
Mhm.
Smith, Jaylon Johnson, and then you
Yep.
look at the other side of the ball and you're like, Byron Pringle,
Mhm.
yay!
Yeah, that's
Like,
all you got. You don't even have
all you
Darius
got.
Slayton. You don't have
Allen
Sterling
Robinson,
Shepard.
who wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in football. Don't forget that happened. Shout out Ryan Poles. But
Oh, and don't forget too for the Giants being held hostage by Darren Waller right now because he still hasn't given them an answer as to if he wants to continue to play ball, if he wants to retire, what he wants to do.
That's an interesting one, and I always tread so lightly on that one because KP and I are great friends, Kelsey Plum, and I don't want to disrespect anything she's got going on over there, but I definitely do think she's in his ear about it because she understands as a competitor like what that means and
Mhm.
what it means for him and for her, for him
Yep.
to continue playing ball both financially and just for the love of the game. And Darren's one of those guys who you can't really tell me why he would be retiring because I think there's a multitude of reasons. Obviously, the addiction issues, obviously, the injury history, and also just being a New York Giant and a Las Vegas Raider. It hasn't his career hasn't been great for his mental. I would say, thus far, and it's
Yeah.
a huge part of the game that I think a lot of people don't talk about. So I'm totally, not to go on a whole little tangent about Darren Waller, but I totally get if he hung it up, I would completely understand. A tight
Oh
end
yeah.
career is not luxurious. I would say not everybody's dating Taylor Swift and winning championships with Patrick Mahomes with ketchup sponsors. So there's a lot of guys who just kind of never make it out. I mean, look at Greg Olson. Look at
Yeah.
Martellus Bennett, who ends up like slingshotting Kyle Fuller 30 yards in a practice one day because he's just so fed up with everything going on in the Bears organization. So never forget Marty snapped.
I remember. Same
Never forget.
Martell. Heck, look at Jimmy Graham. Like his
Oh
career
man,
started out so good with Drew Brees. He goes to Seattle. It basically goes down the toilet, and then he goes to Green Bay. Then he comes to Chicago,
Then he goes
and
back
then
to New
back to the
Orleans.
Saints, and he's
Yep.
just kind of the backup guy. Another
He's
guy
still
that
with the Saints.
Yeah, another guy I kind of feel bad for because he was so solid his entire career, but just never even got close was Jason Witten, man. I feel so bad for
Dude.
like when DeMarcus Ware left Dallas to go to the Broncos, I was like, man, go get you a ring, man. You deserve it. Like
For
all the
sure.
work, all the effort you put in, go get your. I felt the same way for Jason. I was like, man, I would hate it if you go to the Patriots, but if you do and you get you a ring, I understand. I ain't gonna be mad.
The one that hurt me the most was Zach Miller. You remember what happened to Zach
Oh
Miller?
yeah, that
That
leg
was
injury that was so bad. I
like
remember
the
that.
man almost lost his leg. I believe that was against the Saints in New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah.
It's crazy how the New Orleans train is rolling today. But I think, man, I think back to that all the time, and I'm like, man, like that's one of those Johnny Knox level injuries where you're just like, yeah, that's the game, and it's not always
Mhm.
luxurious to that point. And we don't know what Darren's been suffering with, or a bunch of other players, what physically, mentally, whatever. There's a lot of different levels of this, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what they come down to that conclusion with. But to your point, man, another one I really don't know what's going on is Atlanta. I don't know whether they would want to go edge rush with Dallas
Oh
Turner
yeah.
or Jared Verse, or do they want to go O line? Let's be completely honest. Outside of Drake London, you bring in Darnell Mooney, who that Bears. We know
Yep.
what Mooney's been for us lately. So do they want to go wide receiver? Do you bring in Malik Neighbors to pair up with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and Kirk Cousins? That's deadly. I think
Yeah.
that could be definitely an interesting conversation. I wouldn't be surprised if they went offensive minded at all. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there's a lot of teams out there that you really question. You and I said before the show started, Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern is
Mhm.
the only guy on that offensive line right now I can name that is going to be here for the foreseeable future for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. So could they go Joe Alt? Could they go for Shanu? Could they go? I doubt they go for Shanu, but could they? There's so many different levels to this, and the obvious answer is Marvin Harrison Jr. after losing everybody they lost, but to protect your quarterback is more important, far more important than who he's throwing to, in my personal opinion. So
Yeah.
I don't know, Tone, but number 9 overall, man, I want to get your take on this really quick because we've had so many different conversations about it. Now, this can be a part of your answer. You can definitely say, I think the Bears trade up. If you think the Bears trade up, please, by all means, say it.
Mhm.
But where are you at right now at number 9? Trade back, or if they keep it, what direction today do you think they go?
Honestly, here's what I would say trade back. And the reason why I say that is because while yeah, Malik Neighbors may or may not be gone by then, Rome Odunze may or may not still be on the board. You're gonna have Brock Bowers on the board. You're gonna have Brian Thomas still potentially on the board. That kind of gives testament to how really deep this draft class is as a whole. So you may miss out on like really good guys, but if you're able to trade back and you're able to stockpile a few more of those picks, you can get other weapons, you can get other pieces later on the draft. Because you got to think about it. Most of the time, whenever you're drafting in the first round anyway, what are you typically going after? Probably a quarterback, maybe a really good generational offensive line, or a wide receiver. Very rarely are you going defense unless it's somebody, like Will Anderson, unless it's like a Dallas Turner, one of those guys that is going to make a pretty big immediate impact. So for me, I would say trade back because you can still build that offensive line pretty well, even if you do later on in the draft, or even if you're able to get like a second round pick too,
Yeah.
you can still rebuild pretty well. So if it was me, I would trade back because you're still going to be solid with Keenan, you're still going to be solid with DJ Moore, and you're going to be able to find a guy if depending on what you get. I think they have a fourth round still too.
Yes.
Yeah, you could definitely get a pretty good number 3 wide receiver even with the fourth round pick.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm kind of like I'm teetering on that same boat because there's so many levels to it. And this conversation we have right now is going to lead us to our final topic of the night. But when I look at the picks we have this year, number one overall pick from Carolina, number nine overall from ourselves, obviously, and number two, which is our own, we got from Montez Sweat. Or we traded for Montez Sweat. We lost that one. So technically speaking, you're getting Montez Sweat for a second round pick this year in this year's draft. So not bad
Solid.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Then the only picks we have remaining are a third round pick and a fourth round pick. Everything else is gone. So, because you traded that other pick, I believe, as well. So I'm curious, man. I'm curious to see what happens. I'm curious to see what direction they go. You have a multitude of picks, and I think you always want to acquire more. And Ryan Poles even
Mhm.
said it'll be a boring draft if they don't make a move, if they don't
Yep.
trade, if they don't do anything. So obviously, I think they would like to. But my big thing is, Ryan said he'd be bored, but that doesn't mean he won't do it. The man has self-control. The man understands what he needs to do in order to put the best position possible for this organization. You might be bored, but at the end of the day, you come out with Caleb Williams. So I think you won't be too bored for too long. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about it, man. I'm going to name a couple guys where I say if they are on the board, you keep it. Otherwise, I'm totally down if you want to sell me the idea of trading back a few slots and taking Fashanu or taking somebody along those lines. But if Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, or Dallas Turner / Jared Verse are available, I go with them without a doubt. Sometimes,
Yes.
quality is better than quantity. That's just the reality,
Mhm.
and I think we have to have that real conversation of there's a reason that a team trades up for a Will Anderson because of what they can potentially bring to the table. If Dallas Turner or Verse are there at 9 in this draft class, those are two
Mhm.
top 5 picks undoubtedly in any other draft class. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in it. I like the idea of Malik Neighbors more than Rome just because I
Yes.
think of it very similarly to Shane Waldron, who's the current offensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears, and how he used, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who are big over the top. They're going to beat you with their physicality. And then you have a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's kind of just your gadget guy that you have in the slot, who's going to be able to be more speedy. Rome is a big body. Marvin's a big body,
Mhm.
who I believe Marvin has a lot of speed. He,
Yeah.
he just never really used it, and he didn't really
Mhm.
have to. Um,
Yeah.
but I think Malik kind of separates himself where he's not a super huge physical wideout, but he's definitely one of those guys who can move and get open and create space very quickly. So, creating separation is a huge thing that this team lacked. So when you pair up DeAndre Swift, Malik Neighbors, and the two big head wide receivers who I don't even know who's going to be wide receiver one, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. I mean, you got a lot of dogs over here for Caleb Williams and Shane Waldron to play with. So I'm excited about it. Like I said, if it came down to it, let's say all four of those wide receiver or all four of those players I named, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Jared Verse, and Dallas Turner are available,
Mhm.
I think I go Malik. Um,
Yeah.
as much as I would love to complete that pass rush for Montez Sweat, I think I go Malik. Now, if it comes down to Rome or one of those pass rushers, I think it becomes a very tricky situation for you. Would you prioritize completing that defense with the pass rush? Because obviously, right now, if I'm not mistaken, it's just DeMarcus Walker.
Yeah.
I don't think Yannick is still a part of the team, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was just a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So do you think that's more important to prioritize that? We saw what it did for the Bears in 2018, Khalil Mack, Leonard Floyd. Um, God, Leonard Floyd leaves and
So
becomes an immediate impact. But
yep.
what would you prioritize there?
If it was me, I would prioritize offense. And I only say that because think about how many years Chicago has always been more defensive heavy first, and especially in a league now for the last 10, 15 years, it's offensively driven. Like it's hard to say, yeah, get Dallas Turner, pair him up with Montez Sweat. Because realistically, is that a dangerous combination? Oh,
It
absolutely.
it would remind me it would remind here's something for you. It reminds me of when we drafted Roquan in 2018, and even though
Mhm.
he's a rookie, you have Danny Trevathan, Nick Kwiatkowski,
Yep.
Leonard Floyd, Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, and Khalil Mack alongside him. It completes the defense.
Yeah. But then, well, on the tail end, on the other side of that too, you look at it, you had Mitch Trubisky, you had Allen Robinson, and you had, Darnell Mooney. It's like, okay, defensively,
Tony,
yeah.
are you not gonna name the greatest Bear of all time?
Mitch Trubisky?
Adam Shaheen.
Oh, Adam Shaheen.
Trey Burton.
Oh yeah, Baby Gronk. I forgot.
Baby
You're right.
Gronk.
Oh yeah, Trey Burton, the whole Philly special, the whole reason
Hey,
why it worked.
George Kittle's available, but check out this guy Adam Shaheen out of a nowhere college. Hey,
he's the next Gronkowski, next Rob. Even wears number 87, just like him.
White guy wearing 87. Scouting report saw it. Wrote Baby Gronk. That was it. Don't forget Tariq Cohen. Oh
yeah.
Jordan Howard.
The little dudes. The little dudes.
No,
I'm not gonna lie,
disrespect to Thunder and Lightning though. Thunder and Lightning were hard.
I'm not gonna lie. I was upset about Jordan because I was like, man, he graduated from IU. He had such a killer rookie year. Like he was only overshadowed by Ezekiel Elliott his rookie year. I'm like, man, this dude's gonna be solid. Then fell off.
I started to realize like what he was in the eyes of other teams though when Philly gave him like 3 shots. I mean, he came to Philly 3 different times, and it was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's short-lived sometimes. Like we talked about Darren Waller. Like sometimes we don't have a 10-year career. It's just what it is. Prime comes in, and especially the RB position, that was it.
Yeah. Now I will say too, if they trade back, there are a couple wide receiver names I want to throw out there. I'm gonna give you 3. I want to see what your thoughts are. Okay. So say you trade back. You get like 22. Okay.
I'm gonna wait before you say one. I'm going to write one down because I think we're in the same place.
Okay.
I got to write it down. Let me get a pen.
Okay.
All right, because I think we're both going to agree. Oh, no, the pen's not working.
Oh, no.
It's working. It's not working. All right, I got it off. Go ahead.
Okay. So the 3 I think you could get at number 23, and you wouldn't be crazy for doing it. You could get the other guy out of LSU, Brian Thomas, who is solid. Also had a solid career year with Jaden Daniels and whatnot last year. You can get, Brian Thomas.
No Brian Thomas.
Okay. The other one you could get the dude who had the fastest fastest combine time, fastest 40 in Adonai Mitchell.
Does that matter to you, by the way?
It doesn't, because I would say look at John Ross with Cincinnati. Dude had like the fastest combine time, ended up not really doing much of anything either.
And no shade, by the way. No shade once. Like I'm just curious because I know some people who really follow college ball that matters, and for other people it doesn't. And Tony, if you aren't following Inside the Who's Your Mind, definitely show it some love right now. Hit that follow button, because the man knows ball.
I try. The other one that I think a lot of people sleep on just because he produced pretty big at his previous college, but he had a breakout year this year with Florida State, is a gentleman by the name of Keon Coleman. I was a big fan of him watching it at Michigan State. I feel like he's kind of a slept on dude, man. I feel like he's really slept on because I think he also had like 11 receiving touchdowns with Florida State this receiving. So
and they would have made the playoffs, I mean, you know what I mean? If they would have been able to make that playoff bracket, he's quarterback stayed healthy. Like I think he would have definitely jumped over Brian and guys like that on this board. My big thing with Brian is I've heard the drops are a big concern. And I heard the other thing about Brian from a couple guys who I know coach, Colton Edwards, who does amazing stuff on TikTok. He kind of gave his synopsis. He's coaching collegiate and high school ball right now. He said lack of effort is a big thing, especially on the line. He says he doesn't seem motivated. He's not out there, off rip. The second he's released, he doesn't have a great release. He's kind of just, he used the word lazy. And as an LSU Go Tigers fan, I want to ask you, man, like, did you get that same vibe from Brian Thomas to where it's kind of, let's not say lazy, let's say lack of effort?
Here's what I'll say. I mean, if that's true, because I didn't see it, I never heard that. But I'll say this too, to kind of counter that. If him being lazy still equals I'm getting 11 plus touchdowns out of you a season, you can go be as lazy as you want.
See, but I'll counter it in a different way though, because the problem with that for me is we've seen guys who can just go out there and ball out without really putting in work, without even giving it their all at the collegiate level. Yeah. But if those concerns are true in the NFL, guys aren't lazy off release. Guys are at you in your face, cutthroat. Guys are jabbing you in the neck the second you get off. Like that's the second it happens, and I think, it's an interesting conversation because if you have those questions, the Bears had the same conversation about Kevin White. When Kevin White was drafted, I kind of was like, I mean, you kind of just overpowered people. You know what I mean? And it
Mm-hmm.
never really was about his overall ability. It was always about, yeah, you're just going up against horrible talent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I don't know. I like the idea of Bryant, but I definitely have heard concerns, and I've definitely heard people say there's a reason why Malik was number one and he was number two. And and
Oh yeah.
that's the same conversation of other players too who were the number two option. Like it's not always as black and white as Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson being on the X's and Y's of the size of things of the ball. So I don't know,
Right.
man. I'm with you,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're trading back. You get more draft capital. I think you go O-line, you go trenches, then obviously you get a wide receiver. So that would be
Mm-hmm.
great. Here's my problem though. It's the conversation that I don't know the value of trading back right now, because I look at the Chicago Bears who traded back last year. All they got in return was obviously, I believe it was pick number 9 for pick number 10, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken.
Yeah.
And then you got a 4th round pick with that. And I
Yeah.
believe it was a 4th round pick this year. So not
Yeah.
even last year's 4th round pick. So that to me was like, we're here in Arizona saying number 4 overall pick, 3 first round picks. And then I watched the Bears trade back last year. And even though it remained in the top 10, it was in the butt end. I just don't know what the value of the return would be for the Bears. So if you were to tell me today, Tony, would you rather have Dallas Turner or trade back and get a 4th round pick in return? I'm really like, I'd rather have, like we said, quality over quantity all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and I would say this too. I would say compared to last year's, because if I'm remembering last year's right, really once you got past like out of the top 10,
Oh, it was
everybody else is,
questionable.
yeah, it was always kind of like, yeah. But I think because this draft class is just so deep, you've got so much good talent coming out all at the same time. I don't feel like you could really go wrong. I feel like even if you did trade back, you're still going to get a guy that realistically is still a first round talent, can still be a day one starter, or even be in the rotation of being a day one starter. Whereas last year, it's like, man, I don't know. Like, I feel like this guy's kind of a reach for
Right.
if he's truly a number one, if he's truly a first round pick or not.
And really, to be completely honest with you, after picks 1 and 2 of last year with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, I felt like
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the top 10, including the Bears, was just playing hot potato with Jalen Carter. No, you take him. No, you take, like, and
Yep.
we even traded back to not take him because, Ryan Poles didn't want to justify that he took Darnell Wright over Jalen Carter. So he just allowed Jalen Carter to be taken right before,
Yeah.
and got compensation for him, which turned into Keenan Allen.
I think
Possibly
so.
didn't. It might have been our own 4th that we gave. I don't remember. But with that being said, man, final topic, really quick. Just yet, whoever you want to name, not yes or no. What am I talking about? 2 guys, top 10. Who do you want to see walk out in a Chicago Bears uniform after day
Ooh,
1?
after day 1. So after the first round is over.
Yeah. First
Or
round is complete. The Chicago Bears presumably take number 1, number 9. Who are the
Mhm.
2 guys you want to see walking out hand by hand?
Oof. Oof. I don't know. Let me hear yours, and that'll give me time to think, and I can give you a good answer.
I'm gonna draw it out too. I got you. As much as I want Rome, as much as I want Malik, I
Mhm.
think I'm gonna take a page from the Houston Texans book, who just added Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, understanding that their wide receiver corp is already legit. I am not a huge believer in Tyler Scott, but I've seen the potential of what he was able to do in Cincinnati with Desmond Ritter. I
Mhm.
understand the only thing, you got to do with Tyler Scott right now is put some glue on his hands, because he's running great routes, he's creating great separation. He just can't hold on to the ball. He just can't catch the ball. That's really what it comes down to. So if he can work on that, having Caleb Williams throwing to him as the number 3 option, Nicholas St. Brown was just picked up today.
Right.
I think by the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. I forget who picked him up. Doesn't matter. He's gone. So,
Yeah.
we got Scotty, Valus. I get it. You want to bring in a wide receiver, but I'm going to take a page out of Houston's book. I think I go either Dallas or Jared, and that's really what I do with it, because I think completing that pass rush with Montez Sweat makes Montez Sweat a defensive player of the year candidate. And
Mhm.
obviously, you already have a great, great offense. So that's really where I would be at with it, Tony.
Okay. I think I'm still going to stick with offense. I think if you're at number 9 if one of the three dudes is available, whether it's Malik, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is still on the board, go for it. Or
Marv
if
at
it's
9, Tone.
hey, I've seen some mocks. I'm
No,
like,
I'm with
I
you,
don't
but
see it.
like
I don't see it. But
for me and you covering him as long as we have, if he falls to our lap at 9, I'm doing backflips off the Sears Tower. Period. And as I go down, you're just gonna hear over 100 flights. You're gonna hear the Bears.
oof. But I think you go offense, and I say that mainly because with how well Ryan Poles has managed this Bears salary cap, especially from what it was to what it is now, you can always go get a premium dude in free agency. You could always trade for another dude, especially when it comes to guys that are going to be wanting, contract extensions and whatnot. Those are the perfect time to be traded. Heck, I mean, look at Montez Sweat. It's like, hey, he's coming up into contract time. They're like, hey, we'll trade him, get what we can.
So let me throw this to you then, right? You ready for this?
Okay.
Here's the conversation starter. You get Dallas Turner or Jared Verse, and then around the deadline, you trade a second round pick or even a first for T. Higgins. And then for the 2024-2025 season, you have a big three in Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and T. Higgins. Now, whether you extend T. Higgins or not, I don't know. But you understand, hey, look, Keenan's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He's 32 years old. Let's rock out with the three of them right now. At the end of the year, we'll respectfully tell Keenan, hey, thank you for everything. We extend T. Higgins. Boom. I mean, Mike, then you have Dallas Turner, rookie deal. It's Caleb Williams, rookie deal. DJ Moore, still relatively cheap. Cole Kmet, relatively cheap. I mean, it just sounds too good to be true, Tone.
I mean, it does. I like it. I get it. But here's my other question, though, is so T. Higgins' big thing is he wants to get paid, right?
Yep.
But the other thing, too, that you kind of got to ask, and I mean, I don't know because I haven't heard it from T. Higgins himself, how badly does he want to be a number one, and how badly does he want to get paid like a number one? Because you got to think about it. Like if you have to pick, so if you're the Bears, right? Now financially they could afford to probably do both.
Sure.
But it is hard to pay for two number one like type wide receivers, or at least pay number one wide receiver money to two guys, especially when you're going to have other guys that are going to need to get paid. You're going to have to re-sign guys. You're going to have to get guys in free agency.
To your point, I think it's even harder to make him a number one wide receiver when Keenan and DJ just came off career years.
Correct. So it's like, if you do it, which again, I wouldn't be upset about. I think
for half a season, you would do it though.
Here's the other thing, though. How far do you think they can go if they get him? Because, I mean, is Caleb on a rookie deal? Caleb in his rookie year, there's going to be a lot of questions. What's it going to be like? How is he going to struggle? If he doesn't struggle, how's it going to be? Like,
I think you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
If you draft Dallas Turner or just complete the pass rush with Montez Sweat with the number 9 pick, somehow, I don't even know how we got here, but somehow, some way, if the Bears traded for T. Higgins at the deadline or before training camp, because I personally myself feel like this is going to happen before the season starts with T. Higgins. I think it's going to continue. It's quiet now because the draft and everything, but I think it's really going to get ugly, just like we've seen with other wide receivers before. But if the Bears landed him and they have a big trio, this is only for 2024. Caleb Williams, rookie year. I think he has the greatest rookie year any NFL quarterback ever has. And I think the Bears are immediate Super Bowl contenders. Now and that's me being completely biased, a complete Bears fanatic. But I got my Ditka sunglasses on. Ditka sausage just went to Ditka's. Like I'm rocking and I'm ready to roll, baby. Got the old style. I got all of it. The Malort, all of it. Like it's here, and I'm here for it, man. And I think that if you bring in T. Higgins, there is no doubt in my mind that the Bears are in the NFC Championship game.
Okay. To say the two biggest things though that make me worry, and the only thing that I would really question, because I do think with everything else, like you said, with T. Higgins, with Keenan, with DJ, and barring any major injuries to anybody, it's possible, especially with the defense and whatnot. The two things that make me wonder though, can that offensive line hold up long enough for Caleb to be able to do that? B, the biggest knock that I think a lot of people have had against Caleb, at least watching his gameplay, and if you watched him at USC, He loves to do the whole Mahomes thing. He likes to roll out of the pocket. He
Yeah.
likes to scramble. He likes to try to make magic
Holds the
happen.
ball longer than Justin Fields ever did.
You can't get away with that very well in the NFL. Now, some
Right.
guys can do it. Like we've seen it. It happens. But a lot of people, whenever they try to do it with Mahomes, if you kind of watch Mahomes, he doesn't really do it that often. Like
No.
he only does it like a handful of times throughout the game. I
Like, you
can see
remember
Caleb.
my bad. You remember when we watched the Kansas City game, though, against the Bears?
Yep.
It was very boring. I was like, we didn't
Yes.
see a single spectacular throw from Patrick
Mm.
Mahomes, and I think the average fan isn't really watching a complete Kansas City Chiefs fan. There's some spectacular stuff, but
Oh yeah.
there's other times where they're just running the plays, man. Like,
Yeah. So it's like that's the only two things I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I feel like that would be the only two things that would set them back is Caleb trying to do too much,
mm,
just again try to help, try to make magic happen, try to put him in the best position to succeed. And will that offensive line, will it hold up?
and that was one of the questions we were going to talk about to end the show, and we're going to get there, but I want to stay on track with this right now. With the guys you brought in, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift and company, you already know how Jaylon Johnson and company and like defense feel about Caleb coming in, calling him Hollywood, bringing up everything he's got going on with the pink cell phone and so much other stuff going on. There's a lot of questions about it, and there's a lot of different conversations. And, in my opinion, I think he's in a great position right now because you can't try to do too much. You
Yeah.
can't try to, be Hollywood. You can't try to just take over the game. And where they're going to allow you, big time players make big time plays. There's the number one overall pick. They're the hottest thing since Andrew Luck and Trevor Lawrence. So they're obviously going to let him ball out. But
Yeah.
with the veterans that they brought in, with Shane Waldron being as experienced as he is, with Bill Belichick and Sean McVay and so many other greats, Pete Carroll, I don't think shit like that's going to fly. If this
Yeah.
was Bill Lazor style offense, if this was Luke Getsy, Matt Nagy style offense, I definitely could see Caleb being like you remember Martz for the Bears, and Jay Cutler's like, hey, fuck that. Like, I'm out. Like, tell Martz. I can't even say what he told Martz, but
I know.
tell
I
Martz
remember.
this.
I remember because Jay's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing that. And but that's the conversation I think right now is we're in such a great position. I don't think we're going to be in that kind of situation. So I'm excited about it. I as of today, I trust Caleb. Final topic of the day, even though I've been saying that for the last 4 topics. It's always great with Tone. It's always a great time. And
No,
make
we
sure
always
if you're
have a good
watching
time,
this right now on TikTok, follow Tony. We're trying to boost his followers up. How this man is live right now, I have no idea, but we're not snitching. But it's exciting times to be a Bears fan. The problem for me is I look at this O-line. Shelton Coleman obviously gets brought in from the Los Angeles Rams. He started the majority of the games last year under center. You trade a 4th-round pick for Ryan Bates. I believe that was the pick Philadelphia, or it was a 5th-round pick, 4th or 5th-round pick for Ryan Bates to Buffalo. He sat on the bench all of 2023. Obviously learning. They had a great center there. They had a great offensive line. So it's not the worst thing in the world. They just had a lot of depth. Outside of that, nothing really major happened. You only have 4 picks, 2 in the top 10. Doubt either of those are offensive line. Could be wrong, but let's say they're not. Let's say it's Malik, or let's say it's Rome or whoever at 9 and Caleb at 1. Your other picks are in the 3rd and 4th round.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it's the same line coming back outside of Cody Whitehair. So, and obviously Lucas Patrick. But bringing in Shelton, bringing in Bates, like, how big of a leap do you think this offensive line took this offseason? And do you think they could have done better? Because to me, Tevin Jenkins, as phenomenal as he is physically, and as intelligent he is, Kyle Long has talked about him. You've seen Olin Kreutz talk about him and so many others. It's interesting to hear him talk, but he's injured a lot. Darnell Wright seems like a gem. Braxton Jones got to work on the holds. Nate Davis, class is still in session on that. We'll see what happens because, great in Tennessee, but coming into Chicago, there's a lot of different things going on outside of football. Is Tony, drawn out question, but is Shelton and Bates enough?
I mean, here's the thing that I kind of pitch a lot of times because I heard it and it really made me think a lot. how many times do you ever see teams let one of their top offensive linemen ever go? Like very rarely. Kind of the same thing like you talked about. If they've had a lot of injuries, they'll probably let him go. Or if it's one of those, they're just not going to financially be able to afford him. Like you look at Dallas with Tyron Smith. They let him go. He signed with the Jets. From a Dallas perspective, he hasn't played a full season since 2015. So I was like, okay, well, you can take him. You're not going to get a full 16, 17 games out of him, but you can take him. So, I mean, it is one of those, I think it is going to be better. You kind of can't help but be better. But overall, though, I mean, I do think there's still a lot of work to be done. And I'll say this too, for anybody that's probably worried, it is still a long-term process. Like you still got a couple years. Caleb's going to be on his deal. You're going to have him for minimum 5 years.
Right.
Like,
I think Ryan Poles expressed that too. Like, if you guys think this is all just going to flip on its head in the span of one off season, you're crazy. We're what, three years into the Poles era now. Pissed. I knew I should have been at the Sox game today. Not to get off topic, but De La Cruz just homered. I knew I should have went. Go ahead, Tone.
You good, buddy. You good. You good. But no, man. I mean, I do think if it's not something that's fixed this year, if it's not something that he's seen any type of improvement, it's always something you can address next year. Because I mean, you got to think about it. While I think for a lot of the skill positions, it's super deep. Most of the time, you can almost always get a quality offensive lineman, no matter how good or how bad the draft is. You can get somebody that you can work on. You can get a prospect that you can plug in and fill. I mean, the biggest thing you got to try. Just don't go get anybody from the New York Giants. If you get any New York Giants free agent, I have lost all hope. Like there is absolutely no way.
Thibodeau is probably the only one I would even want.
But he's defense. I'm talking just offensive line.
Oh
like,
yeah, no.
Like Evan Neal and I think Thomas is the other one. Like they're the only studs, but even then
I've heard a lot of people that don't like Neal though at the same time too.
Well, it's been one of those, he's been injured a lot because I mean, think about it. He's the only like stud they got. He's having to play the position of like three other dudes.
Yeah.
I can't get mad at him. Like I'm gonna take my time. I ain't going out there to get harassed and beat up again. No, I'm gonna take my time.
Man, so we got a comment here. I want to give our thoughts and prayers to grandson really quick on TikTok. He said, I was stressing on the re-signing, though, of Jaylon Johnson, but now just to find, because he has a Jaylon Johnson jersey, he's come to terms with he is changing his number to number 1. So, I mean, man, all that stress just to end up, biting the bullet is just, I mean, grandson, we're going to make a petition for you all season long to make sure you get a Jaylon Johnson number 1 jersey. I myself will get that for you if you cannot afford it yourself. Definitely just shoot me a DM and we'll try to make it happen, bro, because I mean, I it's the worst feeling in the world. I have been there. I remember Tony remembers I bought the LaMelo Ball number 2 jersey as soon as it came out, changes the number 1 a year later. So hate to see it. But Tone, I appreciate you being here, bro. I appreciate you always tuning in, man. We're live on TikTok right now, so you can check out Tony at Inside the Who's Your Mind. You can click it right over there. You can see his sexy face all the time. But with that being said, man, this is Mike Hughes, aka the Shy Kid. You are listening to the Shy Kid podcast only on Give Us a Shot Network. Give us a shot and hit that like, hit that follow button, subscribe, share this out to anybody else who you think might love the podcast or love us on all different social media platforms. You can check us out on the link right below where you could see us on every single social media platform: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. You can see Germ, Mike Powers, Corey Burt, everybody around the sun, protect our queens, doing amazing things all the time. You can check out Tony Hollandsworth at Inside the Who's Your Mind on YouTube and all social media platforms, especially TikTok. We're trying to boost up that TikTok. Until then, we'll check you guys out later. Peace.